Great, thank you. Yes, as mentioned, my name is Floyd Mueller. Together with my many co-authors, we're presenting towards designing bodily integrated play. Bodily integrated play is for us part of our lab's vision of experiencing the body as play. And that works with the assumption that we used to play with digital content. So there is a player or user, and there's digital content. In the middle, there's the interface, the mouse and keyboard, joystick, and so forth. But what we've got since the Kinect and the Wii is that we are playing with digital content using our bodies. So the interface kind of in the middle disappeared, but there is still a physical and conceptual separation between the human body and the digital content. And what we want in the lab is basically going beyond that and take a step forward to experiencing our bodies as digital play. So there is no more physical and conceptual separation between the digital content and the body, i.e. they are integrated. And we've done work on this now for a while, but then this thing happened. We realized that we only scratched the surface when we met this guy. His name is Mio Ludo Disco Gamma Mio Mio. That's his legal name. He lives here in Sydney, where you can change your name. And as many people here in Sydney, he takes public transport. And in Sydney here, you've got the Opal card. It's probably the same card in your different name, but same card. In your city, it's an RFID or NFC card. And if you know these cards, it's the same as when you pay cashless with your credit card. And if you know these cards, you know that most of it is actually plastic. The second biggest part in that card is the antenna, and then there's just this tiny, tiny chip, right? And what Mio Ludo did, he basically took that chip and essentially put that into a small, tiny, very sturdy container. And then he went to a piercing studio and got that container injected into his hand. And this is how it looks on an X-ray that allows him now to use public transport here in Sydney by just swiping his hand. And we find this integration between human body and technology really, really interesting. It highlights a bunch of technical questions, but of course, you know, like also the ethical questions as well as legal questions. For example, he told us that he was on the train and then ticket inspectors showed up and asked him to demonstrate or show them their ticket. And of course, he doesn't have a ticket, so he was fined. But he didn't want to pay the fine, so he went to court because he said, I am the ticket. And here it is me, because I paid for it. But the court said, of course, you don't have a ticket, therefore you have to pay. So he was fined, he had to, even was threatened with prison, he had to go back to court. And now the latest one is that he actually does not have to pay. He won, but he had to also promise that he will never ever hamper with an Opal card again, because technically the Opal card belongs to the train authority. You only rent it from them, and therefore you can't modify it. So that's the latest thing. What I want to tell you with that is that, and here is him in the lab showing since then he got really interested, and then he implanted several of these chips into his hands. Here's an example where he put it onto his hand and it brings up his V card, business card. He shows that, you know, sometimes it's still very fiddly. He's got several, for the Opal card, he's got now several in there that some of them work better depending where they're positioned. You can see it here. You can bring it up, but we're going to show you that spot is not as good, but he's got one further up his arm now where it's going to work much better. Here you go. So this is Mio Ludo, obviously a person really interesting to study. He's not the only one who integrated digital technology with his or her body. This is Neil Harbison from Spain. He is colorblind. He cannot see any colors. So what he's done is he installed a camera that is connected to the back of his skull that gives him vibration based on the color he sees. And these vibrations, he then learned how to turn that into color. And he's been wearing this now for a while, and the interesting thing here for us is that if you look at his brain actually changed over the years. So this brain here is, like if you see color, this is your brain, and there's certain areas that light up when you see color. For a person who's totally colorblind, including him, this should be all blue. But as you can see already, over the years, his brain has adapted to brain elasticity, and now he actually sees color. It's not that, like a camera picks up a color, it goes to vibration, and then his cognitive processes, kick in, and he goes, this vibration is this color, and so forth. No, he just sees color all of a sudden, at least to some extent. And we find that really interesting as a potential for the bodily integration. Stellak here from Australia, he implanted the bone structure of an ear into his arm, and what he always wanted to do is also install a Bluetooth microphone so he can actually talk to his arm, but he never managed to get the last bit working. And then there's now DIY communities that implant LEDs into their hands, just for instrumental, not for instrumental, but just for experiential purposes. And we find that's really interesting. However, we want to point out, you might say, I'm never going to do that. This is never going to happen. But I just want to point out that the practice of combining and integrating foreign objects with your body is actually not new. There's a long tradition of piercing and putting objects in your body, right? We pierce not only our ears, we pierce our tongues, we pierce other parts of our body, and other people, some people go even to extreme extents to, not for medical reasons, but just for pure experiential or playful reasons, integrating physical foreign objects with their bodies. Then there's sports, right? Prosthesis. We've seen talks about that previously, which allows us to experience our bodies in new and novel ways or replace existing capabilities. And then there's exoskeletons that also can be considered integration between a machine and a human body that allows people at Amazon to lift heavier boxes than without them. Researchers also embrace that, and I really like the work by Dark, who developed this tail that allows him to express himself in new and novel ways. At the moment, he's controlling it with his hand. You see the controller in there, but he's got a new version that actually senses his hips, and that when he walks around on campus, on his university in Norway, he says it's a new way to express himself, right? And the interesting thing is, he tells me that if he's doing it for a couple of days and then takes the tail off, he misses this sense of expressing himself. And I find that really fascinating. So what we've done is, we looked at our small approaches towards bodily integration and tried to understand what our participants told us, what they thought, which design decisions turned out into really playful experiences for them. So this is kind of a meta view on trying to understand what happened there and what we can give you in order when you come back to your home institution, you want to design bodily integrated systems, what strategies can you employ to make it a bit playful. The first strategy I want to tell you about is that you can support users in playfully exploring the bodily integration to learn more about their bodies. I'm going to show you a little project called the Guts game in which this really was highlighted. This is a game that we did previously in which participants swallow a small little pill that then integrates in your body for about 16 hours. And that measures your body temperature, gut temperature, so your temperature from the inside. And you can see that on your mobile phone. It allows you to play a game with another person who also swallowed the pill. And I'll show you a little video about that.
This is the Guts game, a game that uses digestible sensors. After swallowing, the sensor travels through the gut and measures the player's temperature, transmitting it wirelessly to the mobile phone. The goal for two players is to manipulate their gut temperature so they can achieve certain game tasks in order to win the game. While the pill is inside the stomach, manipulation of the gut temperature is quite easy through eating a hot food and drinking cold drinks. However, after the pill leaves the stomach, the tasks of manipulating the gut temperature becomes harder, mostly achieved only through physical exercise or by moving between hot and cold places. Players learn about their temperature as well as how to regulate it together through in-game tasks and messaging channel where players are encouraged to take pictures to communicate how they achieve the tasks, all while the pill travels through their body for the next 24 to 36 hours or so. This game allows to ask challenging questions such as, can pill taking be designed so it is fun? How does our relationship with technology change if we can swallow it? What new game experiences can be designed where the game's end time depends on the player's bodily function?
I never tried such a game before. Your body temperature is an input in this game, which is amazing.
It was new to me. It could teach them something about how the body works, because it gave information that I wouldn't have known. With the Guts game, we demonstrate that experiencing your body as play via the gest of a sensor can be a mesmerizing play experience.
So here in the Guts game, it became really, it was really highlighted how players use the bodily integration to learn more about their bodies, right? So they drank, for example, iced tea, and then a hot tea, and then iced tea straight away, in order to figure out how it changes the temperature in their gut. And they even went online to learn about their gut temperature and how their gut works, which was quite interesting. We thought the other strategy I want to highlight is that you can facilitate self-expression through bodily integrated movement. Again, in the Guts game, they did that by, for example, doing little exercises, star jumps, and other activities to see how that increased their gut temperature. And I want to also show you another example where this self-expression was quite highlighted, and that's the system called Embodied that we previously showed, where we integrated a third robotic arm to your body in order to allow you to feed yourself and others in new and interesting, playful, novel ways in a social dining context. So have a look at Embodied.
There is an increasing trend in human-computer interaction that concerns the intersection between technology and food. However, so far, most of it is focused on the preparation or presentation of food, but not so much on the actual eating process. To explore this, we have created Embodied. Embodied is a social augmented eating system consisting of wearable robotic arms behaving as our third arm that is controlled by the affective responses of the eating partner in the following way. If the third arm senses positive facial expressions of the co-diner, it feeds the food to the co-diner. If the third arm senses negative facial expressions of the co-diner, then it feeds the food to the diner. If the third arm does not sense either positive or negative facial expression, then it makes a confusing movement in the air, leading the diners to guess its movement. It then makes an unpredictable decision, either feeding to the diner or to the co-diner, allowing them to eat in a playful and social manner.
It's a nice change from just sitting down and shoving food in your face. Like normally we just look at our mobile phones and maybe talk a little bit, but this one was kind of full interaction with the person.
I think it's especially suitable for like party games, and I think it will help to make new friends.
We hope that our work inspires new ways of augmenting eating processes, ultimately contributing to our understanding of human-food interaction.
So here at Embodied, our players not only told us that they learned about their bodies, in particular, they said they reflected on how fast or how slow they actually feed themselves, but it was also facilitated, self-expression was facilitated through the integrated movement. Here's a couple of players that we really seem to enjoying that, but they really used their body in new and interesting ways to express themselves as part of the overall experience. And with that, I want to conclude my talk on towards designing bodily integrated play. As I mentioned, this is part of our bigger vision of experiencing the body as play. The take-home message for you is basically that bodily integration is a really novel and interesting resource for play that we encourage you to take home and apply to your designs at home. My name is Floyd Mueller from the Exertion Games Lab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Floyd.